Hey everybody, I am so excited about today's conversation. I am absolutely thrilled to have Laura Valentine. She is a licensed clinical mental health counselor. Did I get that right?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
All right, good. And the reason why I'm so excited about having this conversation with Laura is because, even though I've been having amazing conversations with women who have shared their stories of bravery and their journey to being brave when the moment called for it, um, there definitely is a correlation between our mental well-being and our inner conversation that we have and being brave. And so, interestingly, at the time that we are recording this is the month of May, and it's also Mental Health Awareness Month. So I thought it would be a great idea to have an expert come and speak to us about, I would say, the psychology of, of fear, or what's happening inside of us when it is that we are, faced with challenges with doing the brave thing. So Laura, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you, Miss Alani. Thank you so much for having me come and talk to everybody about something that I love, which is mental health.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be here and ready to have a conversation.
All right. Well, let's get straight into it. My first question for you, Laura, is can you explain the role that fear and anxiety play in preventing people from taking risks?
Yeah, that's good. So there is a relationship between our emotions and our decision making, right? So anxious individuals generally focus on just the negative aspects of the situation. And so now there's this increased perception of a negative outcome, right? So we know fear is healthy in the sense that it keeps us away from danger and it's supposed to trigger appropriate adaptive responses. But if someone is anxious or afraid to make decisions, then they're not going to take that risk to do what it is that's presented to them, or what it is they have that desire to do, because the emotion will overpower our sense of reasoning.
Mhm. And Laura, I saw something interesting as I was, just doing my research into um, fear and some of the other things that prevent people from being brave. And some of those things are perfection. Some of those things are our past or even our present. But one thing that I saw, and it was actually neurosurgeon, and he was saying that people or our brains do not like consequence. Like it doesn't like to think that it's going to be in a position where it's threatened. And so it works over time, and so it manifests in something called fear or whatever those inhibitors are. As you said, thinking of the negative results or what would potentially keep it safe, you know. So I thought that's interesting. And it's almost like this biological reaction that we kind of have to figure out how to work around, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because the body keeps the score. The body remembers, even though we try to forget. The body remembers,
Mhm.
right?
Very
Especially with
interesting.
someone. Yeah, yeah.
So, Laura, how does our past trauma or negative experience influence a person's willingness to take risk and essentially live boldly?
Yeah. So trauma affects our belief or one's belief about the future, and it limits our expectations about life, right? So when we have the traumatic experience, the reactions can create confusion, sadness, anxiety, numbness. They can be blunt affect, and then the one that really gets us is disassociation. So if you have checked out of life, you've checked out of living, and then there's no motivation to achieve things, then it negatively affects the risk taking to live boldly. So, for example, someone has lost a loved one in a car accident, or they've experienced an accident that traumatized them. This person is not or may not want to get into a vehicle again. So an opportunity arises sometime in life that you have to drive 3 hours to get to it. Your body keeps that score. You may not want to go out there and take that chance because are afraid of it. And then here it is. Now you're not taking these opportunities because you're remembering and re-experiencing that situation again and again because of that traumatic experience.
Yeah. Life is all about ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and the negative experiences that we have are things that we have to develop some kind of techniques then, or some kind of practices that would help us to overcome. So what are some of those practical things that we can do, Laura, to help us overcome fears in the moments that we are having to man up or woman up and be brave?
Okay, so there are a couple of things. Of course, we talk about mental health. I love mental health. There are many, many tools that we can use. So I'll give you a couple that you can do on your own without a licensed professional counselor to walk you through that experience. So one of them could be to think of a way that an experience or some anxiety has impacted your life, right? And then just kind of sit with it for a minute, close your eyes, and then imagine that you woke up tomorrow and your life was different. How do you know it's different? What's happening there in this experience? And the idea is to walk yourself through this thing, imagining this thing, reimagine the experience to be a positive and a healthy one, that the desire gets you to work towards that the push, the desire to achieve that thing, that positive result is more it takes over the fear. So now it's the behavioral action versus the cognitive that makes you move into what that experience. Okay, so that's the first one. And then the second one, if we can challenge your irrational thoughts and just replace them with positive ones. So just speaking life over your situation, manifesting proper things. So example, your boss is angry with you, you walk in the job, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired, right? So instead of taking that experience and saying, I'm going to get fired because my boss is angry at me, say, he or she could be angry at anybody. They're not necessarily angry with me. Or even if you did make a mistake, say to yourself, okay, so this experience was not a great one, but I've consistently done a great job at what I do. So I can overcome this experience. Tomorrow is going to be a better day. So just take that negative thought and challenge it and replace it with something more positive.
Okay, those are really good, Laura. So what we're seeing here is perspective is so important, and also to be able to replace. So perspective, leads to you replacing the negative thoughts that you have. What are some things that we can do on a daily basis, almost like taking our brave vitamins, so that so that when things come, we have the strength and the stamina to be brave?
I love that, the brave vitamin. That is wonderful. So in this case, let caution inform your action, not prevent it. So as I said earlier on, fear and anxiety is good in small doses because it causes our danger, the fight or flight responses, right? So let caution inform your decisions, inform your actions, but not prevent you from doing it. We've all heard before, to do it afraid. So you have to do it afraid. If you do it afraid, then you're able to still achieve what it is you need to achieve, even though there's a sense of fear connected to this new thing, right? And then in the same way, identify what scares you. So if you know what scares you, describe it, put words to it, confront that fear so that it doesn't paralyze you from taking the next steps. Okay. And then we want to embrace uncertainty. We don't know what the future holds. So if we have the concept that I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I'm going to be brave and bold and I'm going to do it because, I may miss out on something wonderful if I'm afraid to try, right? And then be resilient. So if you fall, you will absolutely fall. We will absolutely fail from time to time, but fail big, fail fast, and get up, dust yourself, and be resilient, and do it again until you get that desired result.
That reminds me of a quote from Nelson Mandela, and I'd love to share it with you and everyone watching. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And that ties into what you were just saying, about identifying that fear, identifying that trigger point that causes you to, feel that you maybe are not worthy of taking this next step. Interestingly, I think that sometimes worthiness comes into play here, where we think we don't have what we need to move forward. Can you talk a little bit about that feeling of worthiness or even imposter syndrome that makes us seize up?
Yeah, so we want to develop our muscles. We want to develop that self-esteem muscle that makes us feel great. We want to brag about yourself. Brag about yourself ever so often. You have strengths. Just as we have weaknesses, we have strengths. So magnify your strengths and spend some time getting to know those and operating those so that you don't have to feel weak or stay stuck in that weak space. Right? We definitely want to sustain them as often as we can. We want to, surround ourselves with positive people who love us and could help us through this journey called life, right? So that we have the what we need when it comes to motivate us from
Mhm.
the not so good into the good spaces. Okay.
Yeah.
Then then you want to learn how to effectively regulate your emotions. Sadness will come. There's going to be a time where you're disappointed. Life in itself may disappoint you, a situation, a circumstance. But even in that, learn how to go through it, feel it, experience it, because you are human. But then don't stay stuck in that place. Don't stay stuck. Imposter syndrome is simply a part of you believing that you can't do something when I'm sure you can.
Mm.
Get the knowledge, get the wisdom, get the understanding. If it means that you need to get some time management skills or something else that really makes you feel a little bit more secure in that space, but you absolutely can do it. If you born to do it, you have the skills and the tools. Highlight your strengths instead of your weaknesses, and
Mhm.
succeed. Go for it. Go for that.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. One of the things that I noticed about myself, an area in which I am challenged is having hard conversations. And it's just the most uncomfortable thing for me. But I have had to have them, and all of us, have to have hard conversation at some point. It's not an issue for some people, but for me, it is. And when I mentioned the whole vitamin, the brave vitamins, kind of took that approach to help myself to manage the emotions that I feel when I'm faced with those moments. So what I actually did, Laura,
Mhm.
was I would look for uncomfortable things to watch, people having hard discussions, debates, things like that. I would look for them on YouTube, or if I stumbled upon one on, let's say, Instagram or wherever, I would sit down and I would subject myself to watching that thing. Because in my mind, I'm saying to myself that, listen, I need to face this thing and I need to do it in an environment where, it's not, a result is not, on the other side of me feeling this way, but I can just sit in it and figure it out. So, as a mental health expert, I hope I'm doing the right thing.
You absolutely are doing the right thing, because avoiding
Mhm.
that fear actually puts us into this cycle that we don't want to do,
Mhm.
right? Because if you avoid it, okay, great, you feel better because you sort of escaped having that experience. But all it does is it creates this harmful cycle of avoidance, and now it worsens the anxiety.
Yeah.
So you're better off jumping in there, facing that thing, because the more you do it, it lessens the anxiety, the easier it becomes, and now it's better than avoiding it altogether. So you are absolutely right. Keep doing that, because
Yeah.
that's the right thing to do.
All right. Whew, good. And Laura, one last thing that I want to extract from what you just said is that community is so important. It's good to have people around you that can help you to, regulate what you're feeling in the moment, to help talk you down, as some people say, or talk you up, if that is what is needed. And, this is why we are creating these opportunities for people to share their stories and their expertise, because that's what community does. It helps us to fill in the gaps, and it also helps us to, create platforms for each other, or ladders that we all can climb up to another level. And so, Laura, I'm so glad that you had some time in your busy schedule to sit down and chat with me and really, give us some really useful advice and tips and perspective about how to face the moments when we are having to take a risk. Because at the end of the day, if we're not facing a risk, then we won't be able to wear that badge of honor called brave.
Absolutely.
And life requires us to be brave in so many instances. And thank you so much for equipping us with the tools today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What you're doing is amazing. And community is so important as we go through life. So thanks again for having me here. Thanks again for even being interested in this conversation about being brave, because we're here, we have one life to live. So we might as well do it. We might as well do it brave, and accomplish as much as we can in this time that we have here. So Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Laura.